I let Cooper off his leash near the tree line, same as I always did. It was our routine. Every evening, just before sunset, I'd take him out behind the house to the edge of the woods, where the air smelled like damp earth and pine. The world felt quieter there, tucked away from the hum of the town, nothing but trees stretching endlessly in every direction. Cooper was a mutt, a good one, loyal, stubborn, too curious for his own good. He dashed into the undergrowth, his tail wagging like a flag of freedom. I expected him to do what he always did, sniff around, chase after invisible things, dig up something disgusting, then come sprinting back, panting, proud of himself, ready for dinner. But this time, he never came back. The search begins. At first, I wasn't worried. I called his name, a casual, "Cooper, come on, buddy," letting my voice carry through the trees. Nothing. Still, I wasn't panicked. Not yet. He was probably just sniffing something, caught up in the endless distractions only a dog could understand. I walked a little deeper, brushing past low-hanging branches, the air damp, thick with the scent of wet leaves. Cooper. Silence. A cold, creeping unease settled in my stomach. He should have heard me by now. He should have come running. I picked up my pace, my boots sinking into the soft earth. The woods were darker than they should have been, the sky above washed in deep hues of purple and blue, the last light of the sun bleeding away. I kept calling for him, my voice growing tighter, edged with something I didn't want to name. It had been too long, too much silence. By the time I grabbed a flashlight and went back out, the sky had turned black. I hadn't thought about time until then, until I realized I'd been out here for hours, searching. My flashlight sliced through the trees, cutting through the dark like a thin, trembling blade. The beam bounced off the damp bark, catching the gleam of distant water droplets clinging to leaves. Everything felt unnatural. The woods weren't supposed to be this quiet. Even at night, there should have been something. Crickets, owls, the occasional rustle of something small moving in the undergrowth. But there was nothing, just my breath, just the sound of my boots crunching over the earth, just the distant memory of Cooper's barking, long gone now, swallowed by the trees. Something was wrong. I could feel it now, deep in my ribs, a sick, twisting thing that coiled around my heart and lungs, making it hard to breathe. The deeper I went, the worse it got. Like the trees were pressing in, watching. Like the silence wasn't just absence, but presence. Something waiting beneath it. I kept moving. I had to find him. I checked the same spots over and over, retraced my steps, looked for any sign, paw prints, broken twigs, disturbed dirt. Nothing. It was like he had never been there at all. By midnight, I had to accept the truth. Cooper was gone. My throat felt tight. My arms ached from pushing through brush, from grabbing at empty space where I thought I had seen movement, from reaching for something, anything that wasn't there. I turned back toward home, my flashlight flickering slightly, the bulb dimming with exhaustion, just like me. With every step, the feeling of wrongness grew stronger, and as I finally reached the edge of the woods, I swore I heard something move behind me, a soft, wet rustling, something that wasn't Cooper. I was half asleep when I heard it, a soft, rhythmic scratching against the back door. At first, it didn't register. I was drifting in and out of sleep, my mind swimming in that hazy, half-conscious state where reality blurs, where sounds don't quite make sense. Then, scratch, scratch, scratch. My eyes snapped open. Cooper! I sat up so fast my vision blurred, my pulse slammed in my chest, a sharp jolt of adrenaline chasing away the fog of sleep. The relief was so overwhelming I almost tripped over myself getting to the door. I had spent all night searching for him, calling his name until my throat was raw, imagining the worst possible scenarios. But now, he was here. He was alive. I fumbled with the lock, my fingers shaking, breath hitching in my throat as I yanked the door open, and then everything stopped. At first glance, it was Cooper. Same golden brown fur, matted with dirt, same floppy ears, same deep, soulful eyes that had always looked at me with unwavering trust. But something was wrong, very wrong. He stood too stiffly, his body motionless, almost posed, like a taxidermy display that had just been set in place. His legs were wrong, slightly too long, slightly too thin, his ribs pressed against his skin, too defined, as if he had been stretched. His frame elongated just a little beyond what should have been possible. But the worst part? His eyes. They were his, but they weren't. Something sat just behind them, something that watched me rather than looked at me, like it was waiting, like it was studying me. A sick, slow chill spread through my spine. My instincts screamed at me to shut the door, to lock it, to pretend I had never heard the scratching. Instead, I stood there, staring. His tail didn't wag. He didn't bark, didn't whine, didn't launch himself at me the way he always did when he was excited to come home. He just stood there, unmoving. Then, he hesitated. It was the smallest thing, barely noticeable, but I saw it. A flicker of uncertainty. A moment of stillness too long, too deliberate, like whatever was wearing my dog's skin wasn't quite sure how to use it. My stomach twisted. Still, I let him in. I should have closed the door. I should have listened to every screaming instinct in my body, every hair standing on end, every ounce of ice-cold dread curling around my ribs. But I didn't. Because what if it really was him? What if he had been lost, hurt, starving, wandering through the woods all night? What if my mind was just playing tricks on me, seeing wrongness where there was none? I swallowed the fear, forced myself to believe it was just exhaustion. "Come on, bud, get in here." He stepped forward, and for the first time, I saw the way he moved. Not naturally, not the usual eager trot of a dog happy to be home, but something jerky, something mechanical, like each step had to be remembered, as if it wasn't instinctual, but learned. I forced a shaky laugh, stepping aside to let him in. My hands were still trembling. I clenched them into fists. "What the hell happened to you out there, buddy?" He didn't answer. He just walked inside, and the moment the door clicked shut, the air felt different, wrong, like I had just made a terrible mistake. Cooper walked inside like a stranger in his own skin. He moved too carefully, every step measured, rehearsed. Normally, when he came in from outside, he'd shake off the dirt, trot straight to his water bowl, maybe jump up on the couch before I could tell him not to. This time he just walked. No excitement, no tail wagging, just methodical movement, like he was remembering how to be a dog. He padded toward the fireplace, the same spot he had always claimed as his own since the day I brought him home. It was muscle memory, a perfect mimicry of habit, but it wasn't right. His steps were too slow, too deliberate, as if each one was being carefully thought through before it happened. His claws tapped against the wooden floor, too sharp, the sound making my stomach churn. Then, he curled up, like he always did, like nothing had changed. I stood there, frozen in place, watching him. And he was watching me too. It took me too long to realize he wasn't blinking, not even once. His eyes, those deep, familiar brown eyes, were wide open. locked onto me like a predator watching its prey. Normally, when a dog curls up to sleep, their eyes flutter closed within minutes, their breathing slows, their body melts into rest. But Cooper didn't move, didn't blink, didn't breathe, at least not the way he should. His chest rose and fell, but too perfectly. The rhythm was too even, too precise, like a machine programmed to simulate breathing, rather than a living thing doing it naturally. My mouth went dry. I was hyper-aware of every detail, every tiny wrongness, every fraction of movement that didn't feel real. He smelled the same. That familiar, warm, earthy scent, a mix of pine needles and the old blanket he loved dragging around the house. But the smell did nothing to ease the unease curling in my gut, because something was inside my dog wearing his skin. I sat down slowly, lowering myself onto the couch without looking away. My muscles were tense, my fingers gripping the fabric of my jeans so hard my knuckles ached. I tried to act normal, tried to pretend everything was fine. But Cooper just lay there, perfectly still, not shifting, not sighing, not adjusting his legs the way dogs always do when they settle in for the night. And those eyes, those unblinking, unrelenting eyes, they weren't filled with exhaustion. They weren't filled with relief from finding his way home. They were waiting, calculating, studying. I swallowed hard, trying to shove the fear down my throat. He was just tired, just tired. I repeated the words over and over in my head, like a prayer, like a desperate lie I needed to believe. But deep down, in the marrow of my bones, I knew. That wasn't my dog. And whatever it was waiting for something. I woke to a sound. A strange, wet clicking. At first, I thought I was dreaming. The kind of half-conscious haze where the world isn't quite real yet, where shapes bleed into the darkness and sounds come from places they shouldn't. But then I heard it again. Click, 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 a wet, deliberate noise like teeth tapping together or bones shifting inside something that shouldn't be moving. My chest tightened, my body turned to ice. Something was wrong. I lay frozen in bed, my breath caught in my throat, my ears straining against the silence that followed. Then, as my vision adjusted to the dark, I saw him. Cooper wasn't lying by the fireplace anymore. He was standing. Not normally. Not in the lazy, half-stretch way dogs do when they wake in the middle of the night. No, he was rigid, completely still. His legs were stiff and unnatural beneath him, as if he were trying to remember how to stand. And his head. God. His head was tilted too far to the side, almost completely horizontal, as if his neck had been stretched or broken, but he was still holding himself upright. His mouth was moving, not barking, not panting. Click, click, click. His tongue flicked against his teeth in a way that sent a shiver of revulsion down my spine. The noise was unnatural, too wet, too deliberate, like he was trying to speak but had forgotten how. His body was rigid, but his jaw worked over and over, as if something inside of him was testing his mouth, his throat, learning how it functioned. I didn't breathe, I barely even thought. I just stared, terrified, too scared to move, too scared to even blink. The air in the room felt thick, suffocating, pressing against me like a weight. My own heartbeat was too loud, pounding in my skull like a warning. But I didn't dare move. Cooper, or what looked like Cooper, hadn't turned yet. He was still facing the wall, still clicking, still moving his tongue in that slow, wet, awful motion against his teeth. I should have closed my eyes, should have pretended to sleep, should have ignored every instinct screaming at me that this was wrong, this was all wrong. But instead, I made a mistake. I exhaled, a tiny, barely audible breath. And that was enough. He turned not the way a dog should, not the way a human should. His head snapped toward me. His body remained facing the wall, but his head turned completely around, his neck twisting in a way that made my stomach lurch. His eyes locked onto mine, wide, unblinking, smiling. Not a dog's smile, not a snarl, something else, something wrong. His lips peeled back slowly, revealing his teeth. Too many teeth, as if more had grown inside his mouth overnight. He didn't blink, didn't move, just stood there, head twisted too far, that awful clicking sound still whispering from his throat. Watching, waiting. I couldn't move. My body screamed at me to run, to get up, to do something, but I couldn't. I was trapped in my own skin, paralyzed by a fear so deep it sank into my bones. Cooper, or whatever had come back in his place, wasn't my dog anymore. I knew that now. But the worst part, the part that made my stomach twist into knots, I could tell. It knew that I knew. Morning should have brought relief. It didn't. The sunlight seeped through the windows, stretching long golden fingers across the wooden floor. The house felt warmer, brighter, normal, but nothing was normal. Not anymore. Cooper sat by the door, waiting. His tail gave slow, measured wags against the floor. His ears were perked, his posture relaxed. But it was wrong. The way he held himself, the way he looked at me, like he was watching, like he was waiting. I moved through the kitchen like I was walking in a dream. Everything felt distant, unreal, like the world had shifted overnight into something too familiar to be a nightmare, but too strange to be real. And Cooper was performing. That was the only way I could describe it. Every action was too careful, too deliberate. When I poured food into his bowl, he sat patiently, the way he always had before. But he didn't eat. He just stared at the food. A long, too long pause. Then, as if suddenly remembering what he was supposed to do, he leaned down and mechanically scooped the kibble into his mouth. Chewed, swallowed. All too precise, like a mimicry of hunger, rather than hunger itself. I forced a laugh, trying to shake the unease crawling under my skin. Guess you were really hungry, huh? Cooper wagged his tail. Once, twice, then stopped too suddenly, like he had miscalculated the timing, like he was thinking about it. I needed to know, needed to prove to myself that it was all in my head. So I tested him. I reached for the rubber ball, his favorite toy, the one that had been his since he was a puppy. I gripped it in my hand, heart pounding. Then, with a flick of my wrist, I tossed it across the floor. The ball bounced, rolling to a stop against the leg of the coffee table. Cooper's head turned toward it. But he didn't chase it, didn't move at all, just stared, like he was trying to understand what he was supposed to do. A long, tense moment stretched between us. Then, too late, he trotted forward, sniffed the ball, picked it up in his mouth, dropped it again, carefully, like he had been given a script but hadn't memorized the lines. I swallowed hard, pulse thrumming against my ribs. I knelt down, forcing my voice into the sing-song tone I always used when calling his name. Cooper, just like I had 1,000 times before. His ears twitched, his tail jerked, but just a second too late. Not natural, not right. I clenched my fists. There was no doubt now. This wasn't my dog. This was something pretending to be him. The air in the room suddenly felt thicker, like the walls had closed in. My throat was dry. I barely recognized my own voice when I whispered, "What are you?" Silence. Cooper's head tilted slowly, the same way he always had when he was curious. But this time, it felt like mockery, a mimicry of curiosity. He opened his mouth and grinned. Not a dog's grin, not excitement, not happiness, Something else. Something that made my skin go cold. Something that told me without a doubt, it knew I had figured it out. I woke with a knot in my stomach. A heavy, lingering dread pressed against my ribs before I even opened my eyes. Something was off. Something worse than before. I didn't want to get up, didn't want to step into the quiet house, didn't want to see him. But something gnawed at me. Something pulling me toward the back door. A feeling, a deep, terrible knowing. Something was wrong. Very wrong. The moment I stepped outside, the cool morning air did nothing to ease the tightness in my chest. The grass was still wet with dew, the air thick with the scent of damp earth. I blinked against the early light, rubbing my arms against the chill. Then, I saw them. Paw prints. Deep, imprinted in the mud just beyond the back door. I took a slow, hesitant step forward. There was something off about them. The spacing was too wide, like whatever had made them had moved in long, deliberate strides, not the quick, excitable steps of a dog trotting around the yard. And the shape. They weren't quite right. Too elongated, too deep. Like something heavier than a dog had left them. My stomach twisted. I took another step closer, following the trail with my eyes. And that's when I saw it. The paw prints led to the house, but there were none leading away. My breath hitched, my stomach dropped. No return prints. No sign of Cooper leaving. No marks in the grass. No signs of him wandering. No little paw-shaped indentations leading back toward the trees. Just one trail, leading straight to my door, as if something had arrived, but never left. The morning was too quiet. No birds chirping, no distant hum of passing cars, just the wind curling through the trees like it was whispering something I couldn't understand. I turned back toward the house, heart pounding. The door was still slightly ajar from when I'd stepped outside, swaying just barely in the breeze. Inside, the dim hallway stretched ahead of me, the shadows pooled too deep in the corners. I swallowed hard. Cooper should have been waiting for me. He always greeted me in the mornings, tail wagging, tongue lolling, pressing his head against my palm for scratches. But now, nothing. Just stillness, like the house itself was holding its breath. I took one careful step inside, then another. Cooper? My voice barely rose above a whisper. No answer. I forced myself forward, my breath coming in short, uneven bursts. My fingers trailed against the wall as I made my way toward the living room, toward the fireplace where he always curled up. I turned the corner and stopped dead. The space by the fireplace was empty. No Cooper. Not even a single strand of fur left behind. As if he had never been there at all. A chill ran through me, deep and sharp, pricking at the edges of something I didn't want to admit. Had he ever really been here? Had I let something else inside? Something that came from nowhere. And now, just as suddenly, was gone. But not in the way things should disappear. Not naturally. It had left nothing behind. Not even a trace. Like it had never existed at all. And yet, I could still feel it. Somewhere in the house. Watching. Waiting. I couldn't stay here any longer. The house felt wrong. Like something was pressing against the walls, stretching them thin, filling the air with something I couldn't see but could feel. The silence was suffocating. Cooper was gone. Or at least, whatever had been pretending to be him. I needed to get out, just for the night. A hotel, a friend's couch, anywhere but here. I grabbed my jacket, stuffing my phone into my pocket, moving quickly, carefully. I didn't want to look around, didn't want to see the empty fireplace where he should have been. Didn't want to check the corners of the room where the shadows had started to feel too deep. I just needed to leave. I reached for my keys, and that's when I heard it. A low, guttural growl. My fingers froze over the keys. The sound wasn't loud, but it was enough. Enough to send a cold, sharp spike of terror straight into my spine. I turned my head slowly, and there, standing in the hallway, was Cooper. Or what looked like Cooper. His body was rigid, unnatural. His paws were planted firmly against the floorboards, his legs locked too straight, like something holding a pose instead of standing naturally. And his face, his mouth. He was smiling, teeth fully bared, not in a snarl, in a grin. A perfect, unsettling row of teeth, gleaming, too white, too straight, too many. His lips pulled back just a little too wide. Not a dog's expression, something pretending to know what a smile was. I stepped back, my foot sliding against the wooden floor. Cooper took a step forward. The muscles beneath his fur rippled, but not like an animal's. Not like anything I had ever seen. Like something was adjusting to the movement, like it was learning how to walk all over again. My stomach twisted. I swallowed hard, my throat dry. "Cooper," I whispered. His ears twitched, but not in the right way. Not like he was reacting to sound, more like a reflex, like something mimicking a dog's reaction. I took another step back, my fingers tightening around the keys. Cooper moved again, faster this time. A jerking, unnatural motion, his limbs moving a fraction of a second before the rest of his body caught up. Like a puppet on strings, like something was inside him, pulling him forward. Something in the air shifted. The entire hallway felt pressurized, like the walls were closing in, like the floor beneath me wasn't entirely stable anymore. The smile on his face never faltered. He was waiting, watching. I knew somehow that if I moved too fast, if I turned my back, he would run, and I didn't want to see what happened when he did. I took another slow step toward the door. Cooper, or the thing wearing his shape, tilted his head. The movement was jerky, too sharp, like it had taken a second for the body to process what it was supposed to do. The keys in my hand felt like lead. I forced my fingers to move, to grasp the cold metal and slide them into the lock. Cooper took another step. His smile stretched wider. I turned the key, a soft click, and in that single moment, I saw it. The tiniest shift in his eyes. A glint of something hungry, something waiting, something that knew I was about to leave. And it was deciding if it would let me. I locked myself in my bedroom that night. I didn't know what else to do. Didn't know what else could save me. My heart pounded against my ribs, each beat slamming into my chest like a warning drum. My breath came in short, painful gasps, my lungs refusing to work properly. I pressed my back against the solid wood of the door, my shaking fingers still gripping the doorknob like holding it would somehow keep me safe. Cooper wasn't Cooper. I didn't know what he was, didn't know how he got inside, but I knew one thing. He wasn't leaving, and neither was I. The house was too quiet, the kind of quiet that didn't feel empty, but full of something waiting. Then, footsteps, soft, slow, deliberate, pacing just outside my door. Left, right, up and down the hallway, purposeful, measured, waiting. I pressed a trembling hand over my mouth, forcing myself to stay silent, to keep breathing slowly. If I made a sound, if I reminded him I was in here, what would he do? Then, the footsteps stopped. I squeezed my eyes shut. Maybe he had left. Maybe he had given up. Maybe. A slow, deliberate drag of nails against wood, not against the door, against the walls. The sound creeped through the room, vibrating through the floorboards, crawling along the inside of my skull. My breath caught in my throat. He was tracing the edges of the room, his claws dragging slowly, carefully, as if testing the boundaries. Then, thump. Something pressed against the wall, not by the door, behind me. My stomach twisted. He was pressing against the other side, not knocking, not scratching, just leaning. I could hear the subtle creak of the drywall, the pressure making the old wood groan, like he was listening, like he could feel me through the wall. I inched away, swallowing the bile rising in my throat. And then, just when I thought it couldn't get worse, the shuffling began. Something under the bed. A faint, wet sound, a slithering, a shifting, the sound of something dragging itself across the floor. Inside the room, inside with me. My muscles locked. Every nervous system screamed to run, to move, to escape. But where? I had locked the door, but I hadn't checked under the bed. The sound grew louder. Not fast, not frantic, just patient. Something thick, damp, crawling across the wooden floorboards, moving in slow, methodical drags, coming closer. I forced myself to look, and my breath hitched in my throat. In the dim light of the moon filtering through the window, I saw fur, the soft rise and fall of breathing. It wasn't outside anymore. It had never been outside. The scratching, the pacing, a distraction, the realization. I moved slowly, forcing myself to sit up, to shift my weight as carefully as possible. I couldn't let it know I had seen it. I couldn't make a sound. The bed creaked beneath me, just slightly, and the thing beneath it stopped moving. A pause. A silence so thick it felt like the entire world had gone still. Then, a breath. Not mine. Too close. Too wrong. And then, a hand, long, stretched, too many joints, slid out from beneath the bed. I didn't sleep. I didn't move. I barely breathed. For what felt like hours, I sat frozen on the edge of my bed, staring at the sliver of darkness beneath it, my heart hammering so violently I thought it might shake the floorboards. The hand had disappeared, but I knew it was still there, waiting, listening, breathing. The air in the room felt thick, pressing against my skin, sinking into my lungs like something I couldn't name. The darkness wasn't just an absence of light anymore. It was something else, something alive, something watching. Then, the whisper came, the voice under the bed. Soft, too soft, so quiet it barely disturbed the silence. But it was there, just beneath me, just inches from where my bare feet touched the floor. It wasn't a growl, it wasn't a snarl, it was words. A voice so light, so paper-thin, that it could have been mistaken for the wind. Let me in. My stomach twisted. I choked back a gasp, my entire body going rigid. No, I didn't imagine it. It was real. A whisper, curling up from the shadows, seeping into my ears like oil. Let me in. I squeezed my eyes shut. I wasn't going to look. I wasn't going to move. I wasn't going to respond. Because I knew, if I acknowledged it, it would talk back. The whisper didn't stop, it didn't rise, it didn't fall. Just the same 3 words, over and over again. A slow rhythmic pulse in the air. A chant, a plea. Let me in. I curled my knees to my chest, my hands clenched so tightly around the sheets that my knuckles ached. I kept my eyes on the wall, refusing to glance at the door, refusing to glance at the bed. Time stretched. Seconds bled into minutes, minutes into hours. And still, it whispered. Somewhere in the night, my mind started playing tricks on me. It wasn't just coming from under the bed anymore. It was in the walls, in the ceiling, inside my own head. And then, just before dawn, the whispering stopped. The silence that followed was deafening. No more breathing, no more scraping, no more whispers crawling under my skin. The air was light again. Whatever had been here was gone. I sat frozen, staring at the ceiling, my body sore from staying in the same position all night. My limbs ached, my throat was dry, my head pounded with exhaustion. I didn't trust it, not at first. I listened, waited, and then, with slow, cautious movements, I stood up. The bed was empty, no hand, no shadow, just dust. And yet, I couldn't shake the feeling that I had let something in anyway. I made my way to the door, my fingers shaking as I turned the knob. The hallway was empty. The whole house was empty. Cooper was gone. My legs felt weak as I stumbled into the kitchen, my fingers brushing against the counter as I steadied myself. The room was quiet, untouched. No fur, no paw prints, just absence. I forced myself to take a breath, rubbing a hand over my face. It was over. Whatever had happened last night, whatever thing had taken my dog and whispered from the shadows, it was gone. I turned to the window, intending to pull back the curtains, let some light in. And then, my breath caught in my throat, there smeared into the dust on the glass. 3 words, written in long, uneven strokes. "Let me in." I took a step back, my stomach twisting. The words had been traced with something dark, something wet. It wasn't dirt. It wasn't dust. It was something else. And then, somewhere in the distance, beyond the trees, beyond the house, a whisper. Soft, faint. But I heard it. Let me in. Thank you so much for listening to this story. Click the bell icon so you never miss any new content. Stay tuned for more creepy stories coming soon. If you enjoyed this glimpse into the dark, subscribe for more. Because the best horror isn't what you hear, it's what follows when the story is over.